Why did Germany lose the war? This was due to many reasons, some of which I'm going to mention in this movie. But first we have to rewind and look at Germany's odds at the start of the war. The war started when the heir of the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, was murdered the 28th of June 1914 in Sarajevo along with his wife, in a terrorist attack planned by Serbia and carried out by the Black Hand. By the end of the 1800s, all the major powers in Europe had started making alliances, and by the time the war started, Europe was divided into two parts, the Allies and the Central Powers. The Allies were the countries in the Triple Entente, and the Central Powers were the countries in the Triple Alliance. The Triple Alliance was between Germany, Italy, and Austria-Hungary. As you can see on the map, it's the countries that are colored orange. While the Triple Entente was between Russia, France, and Britain. As you can see, Germany was surrounded by two allied enemies, which is why Germany developed the Schlieffen Plan, which I will come back to later in the movie. Now, let's move on to the armies. All countries in Europe at the time were militaristic, especially Austria-Hungary and Germany. Militarism is how willing you are to use power to back up your arguments, and by power they mean the armies. In 1914, the year the war broke out, all the major powers in Europe had prepared armies, but the most significant ones were the ones of Germany, Britain, and Russia. And here we go. This is how the armies were distributed when the war broke out. As you can see, Germany had by far the biggest army with 2,200,000 men, and then came Russia with 1,200,000 men. But even though Russia's army was smaller than Germany's, it was the one that was growing the fastest, and it was usually referred to as the steamroller, because once it started growing, it wouldn't stop. Britain had the largest navy with 185 warships, but then came Germany with 97 warships. The other powers in Europe had armies as well, but these were the most significant ones. And the 5 main reasons for why Germany lost the war were these. It was first of all the failure of the Schlieffen Plan that led to Germany's defeat. The Schlieffen Plan was developed because Germany was surrounded by two allied enemies. Therefore, they planned on taking out France first on the Western Front, and then move on to Russia on the Eastern Front, since Russia's army used more time to mobilize. But this plan failed due to Britain's involvement in the war, because the German army marched through Belgium, which was neutral, so Britain declares war on Germany. The failure of this plan resulted in Germany facing war on two fronts, both France and Russia. This tapped Germany for both money and strength, weakening them. Another reason for why Germany lost the war was due to their involvement in unrestricted submarine warfare. Unrestricted submarine warfare was when the attackers didn't warn their targets before attacking. They disrupted Britain's trading routes and attacked several U.S. trading ships. This made the Americans really mad and resulted in them entering the war in April 1917. The Americans didn't get to Europe until April 1917, but before the U.S. Army came to Europe, they supported the Allies, the countries in the Triple Entente, with both money and resources, and most importantly, iron and steel. In 1916, Germany planned on attacking France before their supplies ran out, and the U.S. Army got there. But Germany didn't know that the Allies had already gotten help from America and were better prepared than they expected. This resulted in the destructive Battle of the Somme. Yet another reason for Germany's defeat was what was going on at home for the Germans. Well, the Germans not out fighting the war, of course. During the war, Germany's government pushed up the debt to an extreme level in hope that winning the war would help pay it off. But of course, that didn't happen. Also, the government made almost all businesses not connected to the war close, and this didn't exactly thrill the German people. Apparently, the government meant that the needs of the German army came in front of those of the regular people. Due to the naval blockade, there was also shortages of food, and many people died due to illnesses caused by their very poor diet. They were fed up with war. As I mentioned before, the naval blockade hindered Germany from getting a hold of food and other raw materials at home, but this also affected the armies. The army couldn't get a hold of food to feed the troops and materials to make weapons. Also, the German High Command rejected the use of lorries for transportation and used horses instead. The only problem with horses is that they need food just like the men. In 1914, German commander General Alexander von Kluck used 84,000 horses, and of course, this created even bigger supply problems. And the last main rationale for Germany's defeat was the alliance of powerful enemies and their own poor choice of allies. The countries in the Triple Entente, also referred to as the Allies, and the USA became too powerful together, and Germany had no chance in beating them alone. Of course, Germany also had allies, but the Italians didn't really play such a big role in the war. The Austro-Hungarian army was wiped out by the Russian army on the Eastern Front, and Italy declares war on Austria-Hungary, who were their allies, which didn't really help the cause. The Allies cooperated much better than the Central Powers. Germany didn't even tell Austria-Hungary about the Schlieffen Plan, while the Allies all worked together under the French command. It was all of these factors that led to weakening the superior German army: war on both Eastern and Western Front due to the failure of the Schlieffen Plan, supply problems due to the naval blockade, unrestricted submarine warfare that led to the USA joining the war, along with the choice of allies and Germany at home front. This all contributed to the defeat of the most powerful army at the start of the war. I apologize for any occasional barking you may have heard during the film. Thank you.